Last session we were introduced to sub-procedures, and we learned how to use sub-procedures to take sections of code that together complete a well-defined task and generalize that code so that it can be called many times from many locations within a program. We also saw that parameters can be used to send values to the procedure that influence its operation and its resulting actions. Functions are very similar to sub-procedures both in structure, syntax and purpose. The only difference between the two is that functions return a value when they complete execution. Like sub-procedures, execution returns to the point at which the function was called when the function exits or finishes its execution. Unlike sub-procedures, however, with functions a value is also passed back to this point in the program. Some programming languages like C and Java, for example, require that this value is dealt with in an appropriate way, either through assigning it to a variable or perhaps checking its value in an if statement. Less technically demanding languages like BASIC or some scripting languages like PHP don't enforce this requirement, and the return value can either be omitted from the function itself or ignored if returned. This is an example of what a typical function call looks like. We've got a variable on the left hand side of the function here being assigned a value from the function that is returned based upon two parameters that are passed into the function. So this function would do something with these parameters, presumably calculate a value, and when it finishes, that value is then passed back and assigned to the variable on the left hand side of this assignment statement. So that's how it differs slightly from a typical sub-procedure. Good programming practice, however, would specify that functions are used when values are returned and sub-procedures are used when no value is returned. So we'll try and stick to those rules. In this session we will see how to create simple functions to perform useful tasks such as mathematical calculations, Boolean values to represent whether something was carried out successfully, for example, or perhaps return complicated data types that can be used elsewhere within a program. We will also see how to pass multiple parameters into functions and how to deal with the values that have been returned from these functions. And we will then explore some limitations of functions and introduce the concept of passing parameters by reference to get around some of these limitations.